So today we are going to make a little nice cute dingle dangle earring like this. We're going to start off with this little blue line over here. These are kind of like longish beads that we're going to use. So we're going to first string up this, and then in the next section we're going to do the top little pyramid of beads, and then at the end we're going to do these little bottom loops over here. So I'm just going to start by showing you how to get started on this blue line over here. So we've cut our thread 1.2 meters long. We've threaded it onto these thin little beading needles. I'm going to then pick up 2 long beads. There we go. I'm going to pull them through. So I'm holding onto the beads themselves, and I'm going to pull them through until I've got about 10 centimeters left, 10 to 15 centimeters left at the bottom of the thread over here. With my fingers, I'm going to hold onto that very first bead that I strung up. We're going to go from the bottom up through that first bead. So we're kind of creating a little loop. And I'm still holding onto the thread and the bead, and I'm just pulling it through. You can see it's creating like a little loop. And here we've got that second bead, and we're pulling it until it's right next to each other. Okay, we're then going to go, so we kind of came up through the top over here. We're going to go back down through that second bead. And once we've gone through the second bead, we're going to pick up a third bead. Okay, once we have our third bead, we now, so the thread has come out at the bottom over here, we're now going looping it back through, so through the top, through the second bead, and we're pulling it, and you're going to see it's creating a little loop, and we're pulling that nice little loop tight, and as we're pulling it, it's going to pull the third bead right next to the second bead, and we just want to make sure that they're right next to each other and not making little triangles. So here you can then see that the thread is currently coming out of the second bead. We're going to go back through the center of the third bead, okay, and we're going to add on a fourth bead. There we go, and we pull it through. There we go. So you can see the fourth bead is over there, and we're going to go back underneath, looping it through the third bead at the bottom over there, pulling it nice and tight. There we go, and you can see it slots right next to the third bead. Here again you can see the thread is coming currently out of the third bead. So we're going to put it through the fourth bead at the top, so right next to it. Pull it through. Again, just make sure that we shift it so that there are no gaps in your row. We're then going to pick up a fifth bead. Oopsie. There we go. And we're going through the top of the fourth bead. You can see it's creating a little loop, and we're securing it by pulling it right next to each other, and you can see it's kind of slotted in. So now we've got 5 beads. Again, to make sure that we need to do the 6th thread, we're going back through the 5th bead, from bottom up, through the center, so the thread ends up on the last bead. We're then going to add a 6th bead. There we go. Go back through the 5th bead, holding onto the row, pulling the loop nice and tight, and as we pull, you can see that 6th bead gets pulled right against it, creating that little line over there. We're now going to go back in through that last bead. There we go. Right, as we pull it through, just shifting it and making sure it's nice and tight. We're then going to add our 7th bead. There we go. Go back through the 6th bead, looping it, pulling it nice and tight so it adds to the row. We're going to go through that 7th bead at the bottom, pick up the 8th bead, and go back through the 7th bead, and you can see it loops. We pull it nice and tight so that it's next to each other. We then go back through the 8th bead. There we go. Push it through. And we're going to add on our 9th bead. There we go. Looping it back through the 8th bead. There we go. This one seems to be a little bit tight, this bead. There we go. Holding onto the little row and pulling that last little bead nice and tight so it forms that little line over there. Okay, from here, we are going to move on to the next row. So we're just going to make sure that the thread is at the end. So we're going to go through that, so enter the needle through that very last bead, okay, because that's going to be our starting point. We want to now build the little pyramid on top of this top row. I'll show that in the next video.